In the ever-turbulent landscape of Port Charles, the past day has brought together a mosaic of secrets, schemes, and emotional reckonings. The town's most powerful players and wounded souls collided in ways that exposed not only their ambitions but also their insecurities, as hidden motives began to bleed into the open and the fragile line between justice and manipulation grew ever thinner. At the center of it all is a custody battle that's become more than just a fight for children. It's a crucible where relationships are tested, loyalties shattered, and futures recalibrated. As Willow Corinthos took the witness stand in court, the air inside the courtroom thickened with the weight of unspoken truths and unrelenting guilt. What began as a standard legal examination quickly evolved into a portrait of a woman torn between love, resentment, and maternal instinct. With her voice steady but her eyes betraying flickers of pain, Willow tried to justify her decision to seek full custody of Wiley and Amelia. The courtroom, however, was not kind. Diane Miller, determined and incisive, unearthed every scar from the recent past: Michael's secret trip to Germany for specialized treatment, his unilateral move to Drew's residence without her consent, and his continued unwillingness to coordinate co-parenting logistics. Willow, pressed and prodded, admitted that Michael had once been the man she trusted above all others, but that version of him had disappeared beneath the surface of unresolved trauma, anger, and detachment. Her assertion that she felt abandoned when Michael chose a remote clinic over staying close to his family struck a powerful chord. It was a moment that transformed her from a mother at war into a mother pleading for stability. Rick Lansing, ever the strategist, pivoted from accusation to affirmation, helping Willow reframe her errors as human missteps rather than character flaws. In the end, she declared her pursuit of sole custody not as a vendetta, but as an act of protection. And as the judge called for a recess, the case transitioned from legal theater to emotional stalemate, with the fate of a family hanging in the balance. Outside the courtroom, the tremors of this legal showdown were felt across town. At General Hospital, Portia Robinson found herself in a volatile state after a phone call about Jacinda ended in fury. Hurling her phone across the office, she vented the simmering frustration that had been building for weeks. Isaiah Gannon, observing from afar, was left deeply unsettled by the outburst. Portia's emotional unraveling is more than momentary. It signals the growing instability in a woman who's watched too many of her convictions and alliances crumble. Her cautionary conversation with Congressman Kai Taylor earlier that day, warning him about Drew Kane's unpredictable allegiance and the scars left by Pentonville, now felt like a projection of her own disillusionment. Elsewhere in the hospital, an unexpected gesture offered a rare glimpse of humility and finality. Lucky Spencer met with Isaiah and handed him the deed to a lakeside cabin once belonging to Luke Spencer. It was more than a property transfer, it was a quiet, symbolic farewell. Lucky's decision to walk away from the chaos of Port Charles felt both tragic and necessary. He was not just repaying Isaiah but also closing a chapter he had been too afraid to end. At the Metro Court pool, a morally gray subplot unfolded under the sheen of sunlight and the lure of temptation. Christina Corinthos Davis, armed with fury and familial loyalty, enlisted Cody Bell in a covert scheme to manipulate Ava Jerome. Her motivations may have been cloaked in concern for Molly, but beneath the surface was a daughter enraged by her father's involvement with a woman she despised. Christina's plan? Pay Cody $1,000 upfront to engineer a seductive distraction. The weapon of choice? A pair of sunglasses Ava had left behind, offered with a devilish smirk and the promise of deeper chaos to come. Cody, ever the opportunist, didn't protest much. He saw the dollar signs, not the moral consequences. Meanwhile, Ava, unaware of the trap being set, met with Trina Robinson to discuss their upcoming gallery event. Trina noticed that budget constraints had mysteriously vanished, but Ava deflected the questions with vague references to her new benefactor, Drew Cain, and the generous trust Congressman Taylor had shown. Still, Ava couldn't shake the sensation that she was being watched, used, or maybe both. Her warning to Trina about navigating Port Charles's political elite wasn't just advice. It was a reflection of her own creeping paranoia, a subtle admission that even power can feel precarious when everyone wants a piece of it. Back at the Quartermaine mansion, Tracy was busy playing puppet master, as she so often does. Watching Marco Rios depart, she immediately grilled Brooke Lynn for answers. Suspicion lingered in the air, especially around the possible involvement of Lulu Spencer, an old ghost from a life Brooke Lynn had tried to move on from. But Tracy, ever fixated on control and legacy, tried to steer Brooke Lynn into a revenge mission. To her dismay, Brooke Lynn pushed back. This time, she wasn't interested in vengeance. She was focused on justice, integrity, and preserving the life she was building. Her resistance wasn't just a personal evolution, it was a declaration of independence from the very family that shaped her. As if conjured by the tension in the air, Martin Gray resurfaced with tales of imprisonment, financial ruin, and a string of ex-wives who had bled him dry. It was a comic interlude to a day otherwise drowning in drama, but his arrival reminded Laura Collins, and the audience, that even those who vanish eventually return, bearing new baggage and old regrets. Laura, ever the matriarch, opened her home to Martin without hesitation, despite knowing that his baggage was likely more complicated than he was letting on. Finally, Michael Corinthos kept his distance after the courtroom session, burdened by uncertainty and isolation. He questioned the truth of Willow's visit to Germany, unsure if it had been genuine or a manufactured memory softened by painkillers and loneliness. Carly, perhaps the only person left who could soothe his doubts, confirmed that Willow had indeed been there. But even that truth didn't bring comfort. Instead, it deepened the rift, a chasm now lined with mistrust, missed opportunities, and quiet heartbreak. As the sun set on Port Charles, alliances were shifting, old wounds were bleeding anew, and the people who once fought side by side now found themselves standing on opposite shores. Whether it's the courtroom, the gallery, the hospital, or the mansion, everyone is playing a role in someone else's downfall. And as each secret edges closer to the surface, one question remains: how many more lives will be shattered before the truth sets anyone free?